I'm Sarah, and I run the course in Virginia Water. I'm not a medical professional, but I am currently training to be a counsellor, and I have a particular interest in anxiety and anxiety-related symptoms. I do have some personal experience of dealing with anxiety, and that's one of the reasons that I want to help people to learn to manage it and, where possible, to overcome it. Sometimes the symptoms that we get with anxiety can also be very overwhelming and worrying as well. It can have quite a physical effect on your body, and worrying about our symptoms makes us more anxious, and then we can get into something called the panic loop. So with the panic loop, as you become anxious, you start to experience symptoms, and then you notice the symptoms and you worry about the symptoms. You might be thinking, why is it getting worse? Why am I feeling this way? Why is this happening now? And as you worry about those symptoms, you become more tense and more anxious, and that creates more symptoms, physical symptoms in your body. And then because there's more anxiety there, the symptoms then get worse, and it can lead you into panic attack. And so the loop goes on and on. And so the answer to that is to try to break the loop. And in a minute, we're going to talk about the things that help. First of all, I just want to talk a bit more about those physical symptoms, or somatic symptoms, as they call them. It's very common for people with anxiety to have heart palpitations or have a racing heart. Because you are oversensitized as well, you're more aware of your heart beating. Obviously, that can be worrying, and it's not uncommon for people with anxiety to think that they might have a heart condition or some underlying medical problem. So that brings me on to the psychological symptoms. The first one is the negative thought loop, which basically is where you think about it like the panic loop, and thinking about a particular symptom or a particular problem makes you more anxious, and because you're more anxious, you think about it more and you go in a negative loop and sort of spiraling downwards, and that links in with obsessive thinking. It can be quite difficult when you're in a panicked and an oversensitized state to remain calm or to stop your thoughts, so you can become quite obsessed with a particular problem or issue, and that leads to catastrophic thinking as well. Catastrophic thinking is very recognisable by the catastrophic language that's used with it. Things like, I'm never going to get better, this always happens to me, or no one ever helps me, that type of catastrophic language. I'd just like to talk now about the things that help, because fortunately there are lots of things that you can do to help you manage your anxiety and, if possible, to overcome it, and lots of things that will make the frequency and the severity of the attacks much better. The first one is the anxiety umbrella. So if you're anxious, you appear to have a lot of problems, which can be overwhelming because you've got physical symptoms, you might have some strange sensations that you haven't had previously, you're worried about problems, you might be concerned about having to be off work or when you're going to get back to work. So it seems like you have a whole range of quite big problems. Well, it really helps if you can manage to put them under one umbrella, which is the umbrella of anxiety. If you can try to see those problems as anxiety, then it's one problem, and although it needs to be dealt with, it makes it easier to deal with it because it doesn't seem quite so overwhelming. Anxiety is excess stress hormones and an oversensitive nervous system, just something that some people are prone to, and if you can try and view it that way, it will help you to relax into it and overcome it. Another thing is that knowledge is power. The more that you know about anxiety and how it works, and about your own symptoms and what your triggers might be and what your physical reactions might be, the better it will be, because it's less worrying and you know what to expect. And you can also reassure yourself, because if you've got better before, you know that things will improve again. So, talking about thinking patterns, our mind has approximately 70,000 feelings and thoughts every day. 80% of them are negative. This is because we have a naturally negative bias. In order to survive, it was important for our body to highlight when something was negative. So when something hurts, when something's wrong, it's highlighted. When our bodies are happy and at peace, there's no need to highlight that. The good things tend to go a bit under the radar and the negative reactions get highlighted. So we have unfortunately got a slightly negative bias. So if you can try to focus when possible on positivity in your life, find things that make you feel good, find people who you enjoy being in their company, it'll help to boost the positive side of things. If we imagine our mind as a train station, it would be Clapham Junction, because it's very busy with all these thoughts and feelings zooming in all the time. But we do have a choice. If a thought is like a train coming in, you have a choice whether to get on that train and take that journey or not. So challenging yourself and questioning, is that really true? Does it always go wrong? Is that really true? Or does it actually quite often go right? And try to challenge your thoughts and things. Another thing which is very helpful and very effective for anxiety is stillness and mindfulness or breathing exercises. And that leads me on to sleep. Sleep, of course, is a time when your whole body winds down. It gets the rest it needs. And it's also the time when you can do your mental filing. So it's a chance for all those thoughts and emotions that are going on to be put into perspective. Also, sleep is very important because that's a chance for our bodies to repair and to grow. So if you're having trouble with sleep, it's quite important to do whatever you can to improve your sleep. That might be improving your sleep hygiene. It might mean that you need to change your schedule a little, go to bed a little earlier, see what you can do to put it right. You need to break the cycle, the pattern that you've got into to try to improve your sleep. That might mean taking a herbal remedy or maybe sorting out your sleep routine, but whatever you can do to get more sleep will definitely help you if you're anxious. Exercise is also very beneficial. It burns off the excess negative hormones, all those stress hormones, the adrenaline and cortisol, but it also releases endorphins and things which give you a feel-good feeling. It also will help you to sleep too. So exercise is great. And if you can exercise outside and have natural light and fresh air as well, that's also very beneficial. And try to avoid stimulants, especially try to avoid them late at night if you are having trouble with your sleep. But if you can build up to cutting them out completely, it'll certainly help you if you are anxious. And then the last thing is to build resilience. There are a number of tools out there that you can use to build resilience. The resilience donut is one that comes to mind. But if you can just be aware of it, it really just means compensating for life events. So if, for example, you knew that you were starting a new job, that's obviously going to be a stressful time. So in your calendar, try and compensate. Maybe keep the weekend free, schedule in a walk where you're away from distractions and interruptions. You can be at peace. Maybe not something too challenging like trying to push yourself to run a marathon because that puts more pressure on you. If you know it's a difficult time in your life, just try and relax. Be with people where you can be really comfortable and be yourself, and try not to pressurize yourself, and compensate. Do the things that you know make you feel good to compensate for the extra stress and pressure that you're having in the more difficult parts of your life. So I hope in all of that there's been some things which are helpful to you, and thank you for listening.